if you're the royal family, and I know this for a fact from talking to people close to them, right? There's a lot of wariness about this, right? They don't trust them, period. They just don't trust them. I mean, Harry to them is like Brooklyn Beckham is to the Beckhams now, right? I don't think anyone could be a worse son than Harry. How do you trust him, sir? How do you trust this son of yours who every single time you see him in the last few years, everything gets leaked, right? And then you add Meghan to the mix, who said she'd never come back to the country, who has spent years trashing our country, who's branded the royals a bunch of callous racists, right? And the pair of them are stuck in. Imagine it's your family.
Here's the part nobody at the palace will say out loud, so I will say it for them. The royal family does not trust Meghan Markle. Not a little. Not conditionally. Not in the careful diplomatic way that leaves a door open. They do not trust her, full stop. And I have heard it from people who sit close enough to the throne to know. So let me ask you something before we go one sentence further. What does it actually take for a son of the King of England to be privately compared to Brooklyn Beckham? Hold that question. Sit with it. Because by the time we finish, I am going to show you the exact moment that comparison was made, who made it, and why it might be the single most brutal sentence anyone has spoken about Prince Harry in years. I promise you the full payoff at the end. Stay with me. You found the one channel willing to say the quiet part at full volume. So lean in, because most of what you have been told about this reconciliation is a beautiful, expensive lie, and I am going to take it apart piece by piece. Let me set the scene, because you need the full picture to understand why this matters. We are talking about a possible return, a trip. The whisper that Prince Harry and possibly Meghan Markle and possibly the children might come back to the United Kingdom and step, however briefly, back inside the royal fold. The mood music, as one royal commentator put it, has supposedly changed, softened, warmed, and a whole machine of friendly media is working overtime to convince you that a happy ending is not just possible but imminent. Here is where I have to be honest with you about my sources, and about whose sources I trust. There is Piers Morgan, who has been remarkably loose-lipped about the royal hatred toward the return of the Sussexes, and normally I would wave that away. But you cannot wave this one away, and I will tell you precisely why. This man is friends with Queen Camilla. He talks to Queen Camilla. He is friends with the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. Just a few weeks ago, he was photographed partying with Beatrice's husband, Eduardo, and she was there too, and that is a whole other story for a whole other day. The point is this: he is not guessing. He has direct lines into the heart of the family, and those lines are telling him the same thing, over and over. No, we do not trust Meghan. No, we do not want her back. And yes, Harry has become to this family what Brooklyn Beckham is to the Beckhams. We will get to that comparison, I promise. But first, I want to show you the other side of this war, the Sussex side, because you cannot understand the defense until you have met the new lawyer for the defense. Here is the part most people completely miss. The Sussexes have, in my reading of this, decided they need a new mouthpiece. They lost their last one, and they have gone hunting for a replacement. You remember the previous one, a man who became for a while the most reliable voice for the Sussex narrative in the international press. He would go out and repeat things, astonishing things. Things that, if you were a journalist worth half your salt, you would have checked before you ever let them leave your mouth. And eventually, it caught up with him. His credibility collapsed. His last book flopped. And he had to crawl away from journalism, a diminished and failed figure, because here is the iron law of this game. If you repeat lies long enough, the day comes when nobody believes a single word you say. That is my warning to the new one. There is a woman, an Australian commentator, whom the Sussexes appear to have grabbed hold of to become their fresh voice in the media. And I want to be scrupulously fair here, because this is not personal. She seems like a perfectly pleasant person. She looks like a nice lady, and I feel almost guilty saying any of this. But she has a job to do, and right now she is letting down her entire profession, and I am going to show you the receipts. Because she appeared on a major broadcast and suggested something extraordinary. She suggested that there is now real hope of Prince Harry being welcomed back permanently to the United Kingdom, back inside the royal fold. She said there are movements in that direction, and then she said the line that made my jaw hit the floor. She called it a logical next step. Let me put that phrase under a microscope for you, because it is so much stranger than it first sounds. A logical next step. After everything, after the accusations, after a family was branded, in the most public way imaginable, as a house of callous racists. And now the suggestion is that strolling back in and doing the royal wave outside a hospital is simply the natural, sensible, logical continuation of that story. That, I am sorry, is nutty stuff. And I think I know exactly why an Australian voice with limited grounding in the machinery of the British monarchy was the chosen vessel for it. Picture the scenario she painted. After everything they have said about the royal family, after everything they have claimed to feel about royal life, we are supposed to believe we will soon see them waving outside hospitals as working royals again. And her answer was that you could not possibly have imagined a scene like that just 2 years ago, but that in the last 12 months, there have been key movements in that direction, that the mood music has changed so dramatically that Harry has publicly said he wants reconciliation, that he misses his home country, that he wants to spend time with his wider family, which of course includes the Spencers, his late mother's side. And so, she argued, however it can be made possible, there is now a scenario where Harry comes back in some way and spends a more permanent amount of time here. How it all fits with the children and with Meghan, she admitted she was not sure. But she framed the whole thing as the logical next step for him to be able to bring the children back. And here's where the reality check landed, because a more grounded royal voice on that same panel cut straight through it with a single word. Maybe, he said, the word sorry should come first. Sorry, one word, and it detonates the entire fantasy. Because think about what was just smuggled past you. Unbridled Sussex spin, delivered with a straight face, as though years of public warfare could simply be folded up and tucked away without a single apology. Well done to that grounded commentator for dragging some reality back into the room, but the spin did not stop there. Oh no, it got bolder. The Australian commentator went on to claim that Harry is not feeling rage and hurt anymore, but rather nostalgia. Poor Harry. Diddums. And she suggested that the United Kingdom is no longer looking so bad to him, in part because of how things have gone for the Sussexes in America. And let me translate that for you, because it is accidentally the most honest thing in the entire performance. That is exactly why they do not want you back. Because everyone can see that the only reason you are looking longingly homeward is that the other plan did not work. She described it like a severely painful breakup, said that after all the emotion settles, you are left with nostalgia, and that this has woven its way into Harry's mind over the last couple of years. Said he wants his children to have a relationship with his family. Said he is probably not feeling the rage and hurt he felt when he first left under such dramatic circumstances she insisted nobody ever wanted, referencing the volatile family summit at Sandringham, where so much of this fractured, and then the kicker, that what they planned for in the United States is probably not exactly how they wanted it, and so the United Kingdom is probably not looking so bad anymore. Stop. The British royal family is not a consolation prize. It is not the thing you fall back to when Hollywood does not return your calls. And the fact that this needs saying at all tells you everything about how upside down this narrative has become. Now, I want to take you to the single most outrageous claim of the whole broadcast, because this is where spin tips fully into fiction, and I need you to watch closely. The same commentator claimed, without offering a shred of evidence, that there exists a photograph we have never heard about before. A photograph of the late Queen Elizabeth II together with the Sussex's daughter Lilibet. And not only that, she claimed that, according to people who personally witnessed Lilibet and the Queen together, people she says she has spoken to directly, there was a lovely bond between them. So, let me ask the obvious question, the one that should have been asked live on air. Who exactly are these witnesses? Who else was in that room? The only plausible answer is Harry and Meghan themselves. Who else would have been present to witness this supposed lovely bond that has never once been mentioned before by anyone until this convenient moment? The story she told goes like this: that back in the year 2022, there was a little birthday party for Lilibet that Harry and Meghan wanted the Queen to attend, and the Queen agreed to go. That Harry and Meghan really wanted a photograph of the Queen with the children. That the Queen was understandably nervous because she had had her fingers burned before when it came to the Sussexes and the leaking of private moments. That she agreed to the photograph anyway. That the photograph was taken, that it has never been seen, and in the teller's own words, probably never will be. And then, going back to that moment one more time, she said she was told by someone who witnessed it that there was a lovely bond between Lilibet and the Queen. Please, let me tell you why this collapses the instant you push on it. If there were a profound, unknown bond between the late Queen and little Lilibet, do you not think Harry and Meghan themselves would have spoken about it endlessly? It is precisely the kind of warm, humanizing detail their entire media strategy is built around. The silence is the tell. And here is what we actually know. As far as the public record goes, the known meeting between the Queen and the Sussexes happened at Windsor Castle. The Queen had serious mobility issues at that stage of her life. Ask yourself, with genuine seriousness, why a monarch in that condition would travel to a one-year-old's birthday party out on the grass? It does not add up. The interaction we know of took place at Windsor Castle. It was brief. Charles and Camilla had to meet Harry and Meghan first before they were taken through to the Queen. The meeting was very short. A photographer from the palace, not a private one, took a picture, and as far as is publicly known, the palace owns that picture, not the Sussexes. That is the interaction. That is the whole of it. So this tale of a secret bond and a hidden photograph simply does not hold together. And underneath all of it sits the bigger, more absurd claim that because Harry and Meghan failed elsewhere, they will simply come back and resume being working royals, as if nothing happened. At least, I suppose, their own spin contains a buried admission of how badly things went. But that is not how royalty works. You do not get to walk back in through the front door because the other thing collapsed. You left. Let me explain the mechanics, because this is the part the fairy tale ignores entirely. Royals do a very specific job. They represent the state. King Charles is the head of state, and the members of the family beneath him represent that state in various official capacities. That is the function. It is not decorative. So it makes no sense for the Sussexes to waltz back in as though the last several years evaporated. They can have personal, familial relationships with people. Of course they can. But dynastic ones, official ones, the working royal role itself, they left that behind. And the British public, by and large, is not clamoring for their return. I am not even convinced Harry's own family is clamoring for it. The idea that he can stroll back in and be met with open arms and cheering is, in my honest analysis, a fanciful delusion. But delusion, I think, is the fuel. It is how they have kept going this far. They have had to constantly tell themselves a story about their place in the world that the facts do not support. They struggled in Hollywood, they left the royal family, and now the suggestion is that they fall back to the monarchy as a kind of safety net. I do not believe that net is there. And I certainly do not believe they would be welcomed back, especially with the reign of King William waiting somewhere on the horizon. Especially when the whole thing reeks of a consolation prize. Oh, it did not work out over there, so we will give you another go here. Absolutely not. Now here is where Piers Morgan, the man I mentioned at the start, brought the balance, and here is where we finally reach the comparison I promised you. So stay with me, because this is the brutal part. In fairness, he did not just hand the microphone to Sussex Spin, he pushed back hard, and I believe what he said, and I will tell you exactly why I believe it. I am convinced this is coming from Queen Camilla, from Princess Beatrice, and from Princess Beatrice's husband Eduardo, the very people he counts as friends, the very people he was out partying with. He said he knows for a fact that there is weariness among the royals about the return of Harry and Meghan, and then he reached for the Beckham comparison. Here it is. If you are the royal family, he said, and he insisted he knows this for a fact from talking to people close to them, there is a lot of weariness about this. They do not trust them, period. They just do not trust them. Harry to them is like Brooklyn Beckham is to the Beckhams. He went further in his own savage style, saying he did not think anyone could be a worse son than Harry, tipping his hat almost sarcastically to Brooklyn by comparison, for what he called spoiled, entitled behavior. And then he made an observation that opens a door into history, one I want to walk through with you, because it is far more interesting than a simple insult. He noted the recurring theme, American women. He pointed out that with Harry and Meghan, in reaching back through the family's past, you arrive at a striking pattern. Wallis Simpson, the American divorcee for whom a king gave up his throne in the abdication crisis. 3 for 3, he said. Let me hold that thought up to the light for you, because this is the unexpected connection that the straight retelling will never give you. Wallis Simpson is not a throwaway name. She is the ghost that haunts this entire story. Nearly a century ago, the British monarchy faced a constitutional earthquake when a king chose an American woman over the crown itself. The institution survived it, but it never forgot the lesson it took from that wound, that the family must, in the end, protect the institution from the individual. That love, when it collides with duty, does not get to win. And here we are again, a different king, a different son, a different American woman, and the same ancient machinery quietly grinding toward the same conclusion. Protect the crown. Do not trust the outsider. Hold the line. When Piers Morgan said 3 for 3, he was not just being cruel. He was, whether he meant to or not, naming a pattern that the monarchy has been running for the better part of 100 years. I want to stay inside that comparison a moment longer because it rewards a closer look. Think about what actually happened in the abdication. A man who was, by birth, the most important person in his country, walked away from all of it. The throne, the duty, the role he was raised from infancy to fill, and he did it for a relationship the establishment around him had decided it could not accept. The institution did not bend to him. He bent to the institution by leaving. And the family that remained closed ranks, absorbed the shock, and carried on, because that is what it is built to do. It outlasts the individual every single time. Now lay the present over the past, panel by panel, and watch how cleanly they align. A prince born into the family, married to an American woman, the establishment around him grew to distrust. A dramatic exit. A family left to manage the fallout and protect itself. The names change, the costumes change, the century changes, the story does not. And that is precisely why, when you hear the friendly narrative insisting that this time it will all be patched up and forgiven and folded neatly back together, you should feel a flicker of doubt. Because the monarchy has run this exact scenario before, and it did not end with the outsider being welcomed warmly back into the heart of the firm. It ended with the institution choosing itself. It always chooses itself. That is the whole point of it. And here is the part I find genuinely chilling. In a quiet way, the royal family does not need to plot any of this. It does not need a secret meeting or a grand strategy. The protective instinct is baked into the institution at a level deeper than any individual decision. It is muscle memory now, refined across generations of scandal and survival. So when people close to the crown say almost wearily that they simply do not trust Meghan, they are not announcing a fresh verdict. They are repeating, in modern language, a reflex the monarchy learned the hard way long before any of the current players were born. That is why I take the weariness seriously. It is not a mood, it is a pattern, with 100 years of momentum behind it. But the real issue, he stressed, is trust. And here is where I want you to feel the human weight of it, because it is genuinely poignant. Obviously, the king, as a father, would love to see his son. Of course he would. Charles, by all accounts, hates confrontation. He does not want everything to be chaotic and dramatic and combative. He wants calm so he can get on with the job, which, by the way, he has been doing well. His state trip to the United States was, in Piers Morgan's telling, astonishingly successful, perhaps his finest moment as monarch. So Charles is doing his part. He just wants the rest of it to be quiet. But everyone around him keeps asking the same agonizing question. How do you trust him, sir? How do you trust a son where every single time you have seen him in recent years, everything ends up leaked? And then you add Meghan to the equation. The woman who said she would never come back to the country, who has, in the eyes of these royals, spent years trashing it, who branded the family a collection of callous racists. How do you reopen the door to that? Let me put you inside that dilemma for a second, because I think it is the key that unlocks everything. Imagine you are a father, you love your son, you would give almost anything to sit in a room with him and your grandchildren and simply be a family. That longing is real and it is human, and I do not doubt for a moment that Charles feels it. But now imagine that every time you have opened your heart to that son in recent years, the private contents of that moment have ended up in a book, in an interview, in a documentary, broadcast to the world. Imagine that the most intimate, painful conversations of your family have been turned into content. What do? You still love him, but can you trust him? Those are two entirely different questions, and the tragedy of this whole affair is that the answer to the first does nothing to change the answer to the second. Love is not the obstacle here. Trust is. And trust, once it has been broken in public, over and over, is the single hardest thing in the world to rebuild. That, I think, is why the reconciliation fantasy is so seductive and so hollow at the same time. It collapses those two questions into one. It says, because Charles loves Harry, the door will open. But the people around Charles are not asking whether he loves his son. They already know he does. They are asking whether the family can survive letting him back in. And so far, the honest answer they keep arriving at is no. And then comes the part that I reported here earlier this week, the part that turns weariness into genuine fear. There is a serious concern, reported by a royal correspondent on this very program, that Meghan intends to use the trip to push her struggling business. I have heard it directly from people around the royals. They are worried about exactly this. They think she will sweep in and that she is growing desperate as her business ventures stumble and that she therefore knows she needs to be seen. And here is the chillingly simple formula at the center of it. Desperate equals dangerous. Think about how the wider celebrity world has already quietly voted on this. When was the last time you saw the Sussexes alongside any genuine A-list names? That world made a cold calculation. Go anywhere near those two, and you will not be invited to the things that actually matter. The last real sighting of that kind, in Piers Morgan's recollection, was a Netflix event. That is what desperation looks like from the outside. And desperation, when it has nothing left to lose, is precisely what makes someone dangerous to an institution that runs on caution. That is the equation the family cannot stop running in its head. Let me draw out why that formula matters so much, because it is the hinge the whole trip turns on. An institution like the monarchy survives by being predictable, boring even. It moves slowly. It avoids surprises. It controls what is seen and when. Now imagine introducing into that careful, controlled environment a person who, in the eyes of the family, has every incentive to be seen, to generate headlines, to turn a quiet hospital visit into a global moment because her commercial fortunes may depend on exactly that kind of visibility. You have just dropped a variable the institution cannot control into the one place it most needs control. That is the fear. Not that Meghan will do something dramatic out of malice, but that she will do it out of need. And need is harder to manage than malice, because malice can be predicted and need is relentless. The royals in this reading are not worried about a villain. They are worried about a sales pitch with the whole world watching. So now Piers Morgan is openly advocating for something dramatic, stripping the titles. And what I found genuinely interesting is that a royal author I would describe as the journalist closest to King Charles, a man whose reporting I take seriously, played down what a meeting would even mean, while the case for stripping the titles got louder. The argument is blunt. There is a mechanism to strip them of their titles. So why, Piers Morgan demanded, should they be allowed to march around the world on unofficial royal visits, making enormous sums of money for themselves in the process without performing a single royal duty? Why should they keep the titles at all? Why should the children carry the styles of prince and princess, the duke and duchess titles, the whole arrangement? He dismissed as a load of old nonsense. And make no mistake, he said, they will use every one of those titles because that is exactly what they agreed to. And there is a logic to that anger that I think is worth slowing down on, because it cuts to what a royal title actually is. A title is not a personal possession. It is not a gift you get to keep forever and do whatever you like with. It is, in effect, a loan from the institution, granted in exchange for service to that institution. The bargain is simple. You carry the name, and in return, you carry the duties. You cut the ribbons, you visit the hospitals, you represent the state when the state asks, take away the service, and the bargain breaks. So when two people keep the name and the standing and the doors that name opens around the world and turn all of that into private income while performing none of the duties, you can understand why people inside the system feel the bargain has been violated. They are using the institution's currency without paying the institution's price. That is the heart of the case for stripping the titles, and stated that plainly, it is a great deal harder to dismiss. And then he laid out with cold precision what this much hyped visit will actually amount to, and I want you to really hear this because it pops the balloon completely. The king in his framing has effectively had a gun held to his head. The Sussexes have signaled they are coming. The leaks have done their work, announcing that they are coming with the children. So what is Charles to do? He says, fine, you may use the palace if you give enough notice, but how long will he actually spend with them? No more than half an hour, if it even happens. Will Camilla be there? Absolutely not. Will the Prince of Wales be there? Absolutely not. Will the children meet their cousins? No. So how much, in the end, has truly been repaired? Nothing. A circus arrives, the cameras roll, the big moment is declared, and underneath it all, nothing has changed. And I think that is exactly right. When you look at the whole situation, it is chaos. And chaos, I would argue, is the truest signature of this entire saga. From the moment Meghan walked into Harry's life, in the eyes of these royals, it has been chaos and toxicity, and the family does not want that under its roof. Most families, most groups want to move together in something like harmony. They have their spats, sure, everyone does, but the Sussexes in this reading are the opposite of harmony. They are the disruption. So what would be the point of folding them back in? In this scenario, they are, bluntly, of no use. Meghan, in the harshest assessment offered, was a poor royal. Harry is now, by that same assessment, no better. So there is no real function for them to return to, which is why keeping them at a distance is, I think, the smarter play for the monarchy. And yet, and this is the ache at the center of it, Charles still wants a relationship with his grandchildren. We can all understand that. Every grandfather can understand that. But firm boundaries have to be set, and Charles needs to be stronger here than he has been. So here is my honest position. I think it is time to strip the titles. Yes, your son will be upset, but he has been upset and difficult for years already. Deal with the latest temper tantrum and remove the titles, because the current arrangement is damaging the reign, and Charles needs to make sure Harry cannot do further harm with Meghan beside him. Because she will, as ever, try to sell. I do not think she will succeed, because the business is not even succeeding here. I suspect it may collapse entirely, but she will try. Perhaps she will send branded gift bags to members of the royal family who will quietly drop them in the nearest bin. That, I will admit, would be rather hilarious. But the damage Harry can do is real, and now I have to show you the receipt that proves it, because there is a story breaking that may be the most concrete evidence yet of how this protection machine operates. Stay with me, because this one has a paper trail. An insider researcher has revealed what she claims is proof that the national broadcaster lied over a particular donation. You will remember this donation. The one Harry was said to have made to a major children's charity, the one reported as being worth £1.1 million. Well, it has now emerged that the £1.1 million did not, it is claimed, come from his personal pocket at all, but from another charity entirely. And this researcher, who was suspicious from the very start about where the money truly came from, says she effectively trapped the broadcaster into a lie. Good journalism at work. Let me lay out the case as she presented it, because it rests on three things. A donation of £1.1 million sold to the British public and to friends across the Commonwealth and beyond as an act of personal generosity. A national broadcaster that, she says, confirmed a false version of events to her in writing when she asked them directly, and the very convenient timing of who actually told the truth and when and why. Here is the crux. The broadcaster, she says, chose to confirm that it was a personal donation. But here is what she argues they already knew, what they would have had to have known. A transfer from a particular charitable foundation to the broadcaster's children's charity was, according to her account, logged at the official charity regulator on the 10th of October in the year 2025. That is a public record. By the time she asked her question, it had been sitting there for 5 months. The broadcaster received that money, they processed it, they held the documentation showing exactly which entity the funds came from. And when she asked them point blank whether it came from Harry personally or by way of a third party, they told her it was personal. And she explained why her alarm bells rang in the first place, and the detail is sharp. It was the positioning in the press, she said, but it was also the oddly specific figure. 1.1 million is a strange amount of money, and it jumped out at her instantly. She had worked at a charity before. She had watched countless celebrities use charitable giving to rehabilitate their public image. And £1.1 million is precisely the size of donation that guarantees headlines because it clears $1 million and because when it is converted into other currencies, it stays. For many of them, above $1 million too. So the headlines go viral, they go global, the number is engineered for reach. But she believes there is a far bigger story underneath, and here's where it stops being about one donation and becomes about something larger. She argues that the lie proves Prince Harry is still being protected by the British establishment. It is, in her words, one big club. She has long maintained the establishment is still shielding him. At this point, she asks, did he ever really leave? She says she is showing explosive proof of how the national broadcaster, the one funded by the public, lied to her. Lied, she argues, to protect Harry. Lied to help rehabilitate his image. And this is so damaging precisely because the response was on the record. They directly confirmed in writing that it was a personal donation, and it was not. I will be honest about my own instinct at the time. When I first heard about that donation, my immediate thought was that Meghan Markle would never allow Prince Harry to give that much of their personal wealth to anything that was not, let us say, a luxury jeweler. So there was never any doubt in my mind that this was not money from their personal account, but it was reported that way. And that to me is spin. It is propaganda. It is direct misinformation from the Sussex camp and their team, engineered to make Harry look good. Look, he is reconnecting with the United Kingdom. Look how generous he is. When, of course, his father and his brother give far more, and far more quietly. It is one more attempt to slime their way back into the good graces of the British public. And here is a question that nagged at me. Even setting the source aside, why funnel that much to a single charity? If you are giving on that scale, why not spread it according to need? But of course, this was, by the account given, channeled through a particular foundation. They are the ones who actually gave the money. And that matters enormously because it reinforces the public's growing perception that the Sussexes are willing to lie when it suits them. That is a corrosive thing to confirm about yourself. And it was always going to come out. The transfer was a matter of public record. So why Harry felt the need to let it be told this way is beyond me. It was a fool's errand. And here is a small fair note, because I try to be fair even here. Perhaps the individual at the broadcaster who replied to that email did not personally know the truth. Maybe, but that is the pattern with the Sussexes. The mess they generate spreads outward and makes other people look bad too, because they will not do the one simple thing that would end all of it. Tell the truth. Now let me bring you down gently, because I want to end on a palate cleanser. and it is my favorite story of the week. Princess Anne, the undisputed queen of recycling. She has done it again, stepping out this week in an outfit she first wore back in the year 1984. And she looked just as spectacular in it now, in the year 2026, as she did all those years ago. I love this about her. I love that she goes back into her own wardrobe again and again. It shows she does not chase trends or fads. She has her own style, full stop. She buys well-made pieces that last, and when she needs something, she simply goes into her archive, into the second wardrobe, and pulls out a dress she remembers. I would genuinely love to know whether she keeps some kind of book of her looks to flick through, because the way she resurfaces these garments is astonishing. How did you still know you had that? Where did you find it? It says everything about what a wonderful member of the royal family she is. She does not need a new outfit every time. She does not need to spend a fortune. She is perfectly content in something that is now well over 40 years old. She is, without question, the queen of recycling. And I will confess, it made me feel ancient. Because if the dress is over 40 years old, well, so am I. I have reached the age I am almost embarrassed to admit, where I genuinely lose track of my own age. Am I 43, 42, 44? Honestly, I am fairly sure it is 43, which means I am now officially as old as one of Princess Anne's dresses, a humbling thought to end on. So let me close every loop I opened, exactly as I promised, because you stayed with me and you have earned the payoff. The comparison I dangled at the very start. There it is, in full. Harry, to the people closest to the crown, is Brooklyn Beckham, the spoiled son. And folded into that single line is a deeper history, the recurring shadow of the American woman, running all the way back through Wallace Simpson, 3 for 3, the pattern the monarchy has been quietly managing for nearly a century. The hope of a permanent return, sold to you as a logical next step, dismantled. The British royal family is not a consolation prize, and you do not get to walk back into a working role because the other plan failed. The secret photograph and the lovely bond between the late Queen and Lilibet, it does not survive contact with the public record. A brief meeting at Windsor Castle, a palace-owned photograph, and a silence from the Sussexes that speaks louder than any tale. The donation of £1.1 million sold as personal generosity, shown by the account of one determined researcher to have come from a foundation, while a national broadcaster confirmed in writing a version of events that the paper trail does not support. One big club, still protecting a man who, you have to ask, may never really have left? And the question I asked you to hold at the very beginning, what does it take for a king's son to be privately compared to Brooklyn Beckham? Now you know. It takes years of leaks. It takes a family that craves calm and keeps getting chaos. It takes a marriage these royals see as the source of that chaos. And it takes an institution old enough and scarred enough to remember exactly what happens when an outsider is allowed to come first. So here is the truth as I see it. The mood music has not changed. The trust is gone. And if Harry walks back in expecting open arms, he is going to find a closed door, a 30-minute audience, an absent Camilla, an absent brother, and cousins his children will not meet. Nothing repaired, a circus, and then silence. Now you tell me, after everything you have just heard, do you think the word sorry is coming? I genuinely do not think it is, and I think a part of you already knew that before you pressed play. Send this to the one person you know who still believes in the fairy tale, and let them decide for themselves.